This is about tying with pheasant tail. Interestingly, when I was researching this, it turned out that pheasant tail wasn't one of the older materials. It sort of it became available and came into the fly fishing, fly tying vocabulary about the beginning of the 1900s. So I've tied in a few pheasant tail herl as a tail. This is going to be a Pheasant Tail Nymph with, I call it an American pheasant tail. It was described that way in one of the magazines some time back. It has legs, that's the key feature. So I'm tying in a second little bunch of herl to make the body. Now you can see there's some shaping going on with the thread, and part the thread back at the thorax, and then eventually wrap the herl. Working around the camera is never easy. So I'm trying to keep these herl side by side. I've used a brown thread so that if there is any show through, I'm not terribly fussed about it. That also allows me to make the body slimmer. I don't have to try and hide every tiny little bit of underbody. And then it's just neighbouring turns, I'd call them, touching turns with the herl. I'm using my finger on my other hand, my left hand, just to hold the tension each time I take a turn of the pheasant tail. And then catch it in with a couple of turns of thread. It's a reasonably tough material. You can damage pheasant tail, especially when you tie it in with the tip, but it's fairly tough stuff, and you can move it about on the hook. So you can make a neat job. And then come in, trim away. I'm going to bring the wire forward as a rib. I'm using copper wire here. You could, if you want something brighter, use a brighter wire. Use gold, use silver, use one of the new coloured wires. Copper is the classic. It seems to match the colours that are available in pheasant tail. You can see that predominantly when you work with pheasant tail, the end colour is that sort of dark reddish brown. That's the wire tied in. I'm going to worry it to break it away, so I'll wiggle the wire once I've got it firmly tied down, and it fractures, it just breaks, so I'm not damaging my scissors. I'm tying in another bunch, this time more. I would say that the guide on this is more than 6, because you want legs out of this. And I've tied it in with the tips to the tail, and it's about halfway down the tail. Then I'm folding them forward to see where they're going to come, because what I'm going to do is tie them forwards and then fold them back down the side of the fly. So that's the thorax bunch tied in. It's going to form the thorax cover and the legs. I'm tying in well back from the eye so that I can make a reasonably neat head. And then I'm going to dub the body. I've got a mix of sparkly stuff and it's hair and hare's mask actually, and underfur. I'm going to twist on a slim dubbing rope, or slimish, and there needs to be a bit of thickness. I think this needs to be a bit darker at the thorax. This dubbing's maybe on the grey side, but it'll do for demonstration. And it is fairly classic actually. Just a wee bit more dubbing. And I want to make sure that I'm not that there is a swell at the thorax and I'm not cluttering the eye, so I'm picking away the dubbing at the eye. And then bring the thorax cover forwards to the eye, and there's always one fibre wants to go its own way. And I want to take the thread over and tighten it because I want that to be flat, or sorry, I want that to be tight. So I'm going to take the thread over on a pinch and loop, and 2 turns there, and then I'm pulling down on the tips as well, and then that's given me enough tension to hold everything. Now I'm going to split the bunch that's sticking out over the eye, and just divide them roughly down the sides. It doesn't matter, you don't need to count fibres here. You just push them back, split them, push them back, and then form the head. And that's it. That's the legs are formed. You can see that they give an interesting profile to the fly, and trim away those stray fibres at the eye. You can see it gives an interesting profile to the fly. You can do other things. You could, for instance, put in a little bit of white material or UV reflective material as gills. That's the fly finished. I use this mainly as a lake fly when I'm expecting there to be some damsel nymphs in the water. The proportions, therefore the proportions are, I use a slightly longer tail, I try for a slim body, and then the thorax, quite definite legs coming off the thorax.